whoever is already a little bit more familiar with the process, it's probably just going to be a little bit reinforcing on what you already know. Whoever's new, I'm just gonna start from, oh, here we go. Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Oh. Just letting some people in. Hi, guys, whoever's joining. So I'm gonna give everybody like maybe 1 more minute to log in. Oh, awesome, awesome. Welcome everybody whoever's joining in. So how many guys did you have, how many on the contracts did anybody have so far?
Two.
Two.
Three.
Awesome, awesome. Buyers, sellers?
All
One of
buyers.
you, both.
Both.
Okay. Well, with new agents, a lot of contracts, I think, the first contracts are coming in is more like the buyer's contract. It's sometimes easier for the new agents to get the buyers to sell them something. So I'm gonna probably go with the first option of going off the buyer side. So you have a buyer, they found a house. So now what? What do we do? So the first thing, even before you take them out, the most important one that you do want to make sure you have all your compliance done. So the most important one is CIS. Is everybody familiar with CIS? Maybe raise hands or I don't know. It's my first Zoom class. Awesome. So whoever's not familiar with it, it's just something, this is one of the important documents you want to get your buyer signed, CIS. Dual agency, if it's a Keller Williams agent, if you're using Atlantic Shore Title, make sure we have the disclosure of business relationship signed. So just get the compliance out of the way. That's the important one. You always have to do it because Laura's going to yell at you if you're missing something. You won't get paid on your deal. So get the compliance all in order first. And the next one is the contract. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm just going to go over the contract with you guys. So you're kind of a little bit familiar with it. I tell all of my processors, like my processor and my team and the girls that kind of been shadowing me, is to study the contract first so you understand it. Because it's the most important thing that you can do in real estate is really to know what's on the contract, what your rights are, what your client's rights are, how the seller could respond to you, and what to really expect. So I'm going to share one of the contracts because really attorneys, they call our preset, pre-written contract. It's really kind of protecting all the parties. So I'm going to share the contract with you and just kind of walk through it. Because really the whole processing part of the deal from on the contract to close is really, it's kind of the contract will tell you all the steps on it. And lots of times like agents don't really look through it or like understand it all the way through. But I kind of went through those many deals, so kind of know all little tricks and trades of it. So let me just share my screen. Where did it go? Maybe downloads. Here we go. Sorry guys, it's ticking. Okay, here you go. Can everybody see it?
Yep, we see it.
Awesome. All right, is everybody familiar with this first page?
Yes.
Awesome. So this page, notice to buyer and seller, it's really, in real estate, we call it opinion 26. The opinion 26 is one of the things, it's part of the compliance. All the contracts have to accompany it. So whenever you submit a file, just make sure you have this page. It does not apply to the attorney written contracts because this page is kind of goes over whose responsibilities are what. It's also telling you like the first paragraph right here, where it says, as a real estate broker, I represent. So if you guys if somebody in our office in Keller Williams Atlantic Shore have the seller and you have the buyer, you always have to make sure you represent both buyer and the seller, because it has to do something with the real estate broker. It's not particularly you as an agent. So make sure you click off that it's both buyer and the seller. If it's Keller Williams Jersey Shore, it's already different brokers. So then you would just have mark it off as the buyer, but not the seller. Also, telling your client that real estate agents are not attorneys, so we can't really give them any legal advice. And try to stay away from that, because this is a contract and a legal binding document. It's very, very important, because you could end up in court if you misrepresent yourself or say something that it's really wrong. Because in the market that we are right now, it's people just like to sue everybody or hire attorneys. So just be very, very careful. Tell them, hey, I can't really give you a legal advice. To kind of protect yourselves, because you can't really give them a legal advice. Only the attorneys can do that. So just keep that on the back of your head or back of your mind. So just tell them we can't give them a legal advice. The contract is very important part of the transaction. It's legally binding. After everybody signs, it's delivered to all the parties. Okay. And just make sure that there is a spot for the agents to sign. So now in the era of electronic signatures, if the agent misses to sign that, you can always send it to them through DocuSign. Next page is the contract. So it has the buyer. Make sure the buyer always has the address. So is the seller. It's very, very important, because just in case, each contract has a 3-day attorney review. So just in case if somebody decides to cancel it for any reason during attorney review, they can also send them the certified mail, the letter by certified mail. So make sure there's no PO boxes or anything like that. And the addresses have to be in there. So if you're not sure about the address, you could always reach out to the agent and get the address for the seller. Then next is purchase price. Just put a purchase price there, deposits, if there's any additional deposits. If your clients are getting a mortgage, so put the mortgage amount there. So if it's an FHA mortgage, if conventional mortgage, just find out from your mortgage lender, whoever your buyer is using. Just find out what the mortgage amount is going to be or what the down payment is going to be. Is everybody familiar on how to set up the mortgage amount? If you know the down payment?
No.
Okay, I can walk you through it. So for example, this property is $168,500. They were putting 3,000 down. So if you do, I'm just gonna scroll down a little bit to see what kind of mortgage they're getting. So they got conventional mortgage. So with conventional mortgage, maybe it's 2.5, maybe 5%. So you take 168,500 times 5%. Let's just say that's how much they're putting down. So it comes out to 84.25. If they're gonna put $3,000 as initial deposit, so you just take 3,000 off the 84.25. And whatever's left over is gonna be the balance of the purchase price, because they're gonna mortgage the rest of it off. So this one's a little bit different here. I don't know what numbers they were doing. But it should really be 3,000 and then 5,425 balance of the purchase price. And the difference between the 168,500, 168,500. So really the mortgage amount would have been only 160,075. So what does that mean? You can check your math, just take all the additional deposit, your initial deposit, mortgage amount, and the balance of purchase price, all that has to even out to 168.5. So in order to, the only numbers that you put in this section right here, where section 2 for the purchase price, is really you taking the, whatever the sales price is, plus their down payment. Just whatever the percentage is, 3%, 2.5%, I don't know, you have to talk to your mortgage lender. And then you minus the deposit, and then whatever's left over is gonna be their purchase price. And the rest of it is the mortgage amount. So any questions on that part?
So the total purchase price of the house is 168,500, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So in this particular contract, the people's down payment is 5,100. So they put down 3,000, they took it to the title company, and the difference was 2,100. If you really add all these numbers together, it evens out to 3,000 plus 163,400 is 166,400 plus the 2,100. So altogether comes out to 168,500.
So I'm sorry. So why don't they just do the 5,100 as the initial deposit?
They could. It's up
Oh,
to your
okay.
buyer. Yes, it's up to your buyer. If they want to do that up front, they could only put $1,000 there. Because of the market the way it is now, you want to put as much as you can as a down payment. So kind of to show the seller that your buyers are interested, and it just raises up a little bit of more possibility that your offer is going to get accepted.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So number 3 is the manner of payment. Where is that deposit is going to go to? So you can put it there as a title company. I've seen some people would like to hold it at their brokerage. I would advise the client to put it at the title company, so this way nobody's gonna forget about it. It's there, they can't release it unless it's signed, like the mutual lease is signed. So I would recommend to put it with the title company. And in the paragraph number 3, it also tells you when that deposit is due. So you can put it there upon fully signed contract, after attorney review. You can leave it blank, and your contract will tell you. So if you do leave it blank, it will be within 5 days after fully signed contract. So if you have a listing agent hunting you down for a deposit check, you'll be like, well, wait a second, mine says it's 5 days after the fully signed contract. So you'll give a little bit extra time for your buyer to bring the deposit in, because it also gives you a little bit of time to go through the attorney review period, just to make sure that nobody cancels the contract. Because then you bring the deposit in, it clears their bank, and it's just a little bit more work. So if you leave it blank, you have 5 days after fully signed. Depending on the days, you might be able to be out of the attorney review already as well. And if you choose to do additional deposit, there's a second provision under number 3 on when the second deposit is due. And of course, it's all flexible. You can change it to whatever you want. Just have a talk with the client and see when they want to do that. This specific contract is the buyer chose to use Atlantic Shore Title. So you just write it in, it's Atlantic Shore Title where the deposit is going to be held. In provisions D, where it says if performance by buyers contingent upon obtaining mortgage. This little paragraph here is very important. And why is it important? You can have different type of buyers. It could be cash buyer, it could be hard money, it could be VA, FHA, conventional. There's so many different ways to obtain a mortgage. And when you fill out the contract, make sure you specify what kind of financing your buyer is getting. Because the sellers look at those things right now. As conventional mortgage is a little bit easier to get. The guidelines are not as strict as for FHA. If it's hard money, please put hard money there. Don't put cash, because cash is when you have money in the bank and you can come up to the closing. When it's hard money, you still have a little bit of the different guidelines you have to follow from the hard money lender. So pay really close attention onto where it says obtaining a mortgage. When it comes to mortgage commitments are a very, very important part of the whole process, because if you don't get your mortgage commitment in time, the buyer and the seller could cancel the contract within 10 days of the commitment date. So this contract, and why do I say that? Why is it within 10 days? So read your contract here, where it says, this contract says February 9th. This is the date that I should have the mortgage commitment. And mortgage commitment is just telling, the mortgage company is telling the seller that these people are, we're gonna give them mortgage, but they have to do X, Y, and Z. If you don't get mortgage commitment at this date, it means there's something going on with the mortgage part that they haven't met yet. So it could raise a little bit of a red flag. So it'd be like, wait a second, what's going on? So just be very, very careful. You want to really meet this deadline. And it says, if you leave it blank, it really automatically will drop into 30 days after the attorney review is completed. And then you can go thereafter. If buyer has not obtained the commitment, then either buyer or seller may void this contract by written notice to the other party and broker within 10 calendar days of the commitment date, or any extension of the commitment date, whichever is later. So just keep that in mind. So God forbid you have a buyer that you can't get this commitment on the 9th, but you might get it on the 10th or 11th. You can always tell the listing agent, hey, I'm going to exercise this 10 days of getting the commitment to you. Because a lot of listing agents or some agents don't know about this in the contract, that you have that 10 days.
Olga,
Yes.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
Is the mortgage commitment different than the pre-qualifying letter?
Yes, it's absolutely two different things. And why do I say that? Because mortgage pre-qual is what they do with mortgage pre-quals. So they take their W-2s, they'll take their taxes, they'll take their all their information. They put in the system, it looks great. Then they're gonna start running all their numbers, they're gonna do duplication, they're gonna look more in depth into their financial situation. They're gonna look at the bank statements. They're gonna look through all kinds of different stuff. They're also gonna order an appraisal. So if God forbid the appraisal comes in not in the price range where what the property is selling for, you're not gonna get a mortgage commitment. And why? If the property doesn't get appraised, then they can't commit to giving your client the mortgage. So this is why you want to get the mortgage commitment, because it's really for sure that they're going to give them the mortgage. The only thing they have to do, maybe verification on employment, maybe some bank statement, maybe a couple little things. But if they don't do all that stuff and don't issue commitment, it means they are not 100% sure that they can give the loan to your buyer. So did I answer your question?
Yes. I have an additional question.
Mhm.
If I have a pre-qualifying letter for 275, is there any chance that when the mortgage company digs deeper into those facts that the client could like lose money, like have less money to be pre-qualified for?
No, the only way, so that you have a pre-qual for 275. So the mortgage company tells them, okay, you can afford a house for 275. You're gonna be kind of like, all right, so you're putting the property, it's gonna depend on you on what you're gonna put them on the contract for. So you could put them on the contract for 270. You can't go over 275 unless they can come up with some cash to bring the difference for that property. So the mortgage company can't go unless there's something comes up on their pay stubs, or they're paying, or they're making payments to something else and they haven't seen it during the pre-qual time. That's the only time they can really lower the pre-qual amount, is if they saw maybe like some buyers, just kind of teach your buyers not to, when you start house shopping, tell them not to buy anything. Don't buy a car, don't buy furniture, don't buy TVs, don't buy any of the expensive stuff that really put them into the debt. So if your buyer went out and bought a brand new car for $50,000, so guess what? They don't pre-qualify for 275 anymore.
Right.
Because they just got an extra loan on the car that is going to be like $600-700. So guess what? Now you can't make those mortgage payments that would qualify you for 275.
Okay.
So that's
Thank you.
the only time that it would really mess it up. So
Okay.
just when you do go out with your buyers, really very important to set them up in advance for the successful transactions. Really tell them, please, no credit cards. Do not get any new credit cards. Do not get any new, don't buy any cars. Don't buy any of that stuff. You buy a house, you can do whatever you want afterwards. You want to buy a Tesla, go buy a Tesla. Not till you, not till you buy the house. So that's what's important. This is what we're going to concentrate on, is buying the house.
Okay.
So,
Thank
mhm.
you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, then I'm going to continue to the next part, which is a balance of the purchase price. So the 2/17/2021 it's usually always says on or before. So if your buyers are really awesome and the sellers don't live in the house, they can move in whenever, and you're ready to go a week before, then you can go ahead. You don't have to do any addendums, no any changes, because your contract says on or before. So you can go ahead and close before the closing date. If you do have to extend past the 17th, please do an addendum and have it executed by all the parties. Why? Because of the 17th, you out of contract. So nobody's obligated to sell to anybody anything. So just make sure you have addendums to cover your buyer or your seller. Sufficient assets, just make sure they have enough money, the selling date, items included in sale. Those things are everything attached to the house that you have to like unscrew stays with the house. So if whoever has the seller, so if you guys don't, if the seller wants to take wash and dry with them, just make sure you don't put it in the listing, and make sure that the buyer's agents don't stick it into this item here in the item 6, washer and dryer. Because I've seen so many contracts when sometimes buyer's agents just kind of sneak in furniture in there, things that don't belong to the house. Make sure you pay attention to this specific paragraph, because if they have furniture in there, or if they have washer and dryer that shouldn't be coming with the washer and dryer, it might be in there. And if they do sign it, they have to leave it there, because you really don't want to be in court fighting over washer and dryer because it was in the contract. Items excluded from sale, really all personal. You can add personal belongings in here, or this specific property was vacant, so nothing's in here.
Can I ask a quick question?
Mhm.
So if it's in the contract, say it's like something like a generator, now it wasn't put in the contract, but it was in the MLS. What I did was I screenshotted or took a picture of the MLS and it said generator was included. But what if it wasn't put in the contract specifically?
It's okay. You can always attach the MLS sheet to your contract.
Oh, okay.
So this way you will cover yourself. I've seen many agents just submit it right directly with the MLS sheet contract. So when it comes time to go into the closing and generator is missing there, so you say, well, here in MLS, it says it's included, so can you please put it back?
All right, great. Thank you.
Dates and times of the performance, just make sure you guys, whatever dates is in there, just make the deadlines. The most important ones, and I'll show you on my, I'll share my checklist that my processor use and I use with all the deadlines on it. The mortgage commitment is important. Closing date is important. Your attorney review period is important. The home inspection, things like that. So it's, if there is any delays ever in anything, please do an addendum, because if you don't get in time to do the home inspection with your buyer, because we're going to get to that paragraph, I think it's paragraph 16 about the home inspection. So really the seller is not obligated by contract to do any repairs if you don't get the home inspection done in time. So just keep that in mind. Certificate of occupancy, and just kind of make a note for yourself that certificate of occupancy, and it's also stated in the contract that seller makes no representation except the seller's use of property is not presently in violation of any zoning ordinance, municipality, but really I'm just gonna short it out. So it's really the seller's responsibility to obtain the certificate of occupancy. So when you're on the contract and you have a seller, you would be responsible of getting the CO, unless it's specified otherwise. And why do I say that? If you're on the contract for a short sale, or it's a bank-owned property, or it's HUD property, or any distressed properties, or you buying, your buyer is putting the contract, an offer on a property that is being sold, as is buyer responsible for obtaining the CO. So in those cases, the buyer will be getting the CO. In all the other cases, it's a very regular transaction. Seller always gets the CO. And all townships have different requirements, so just check on it. If you do have a seller, check with the township on what the requirements are, or ask me questions. I've done all the townships in our area, so kind of know what the requirements are. The really simple ones, I just want to give you like little tips on like the fire extinguisher, carbon monoxide, and the smoke alarms. Just now it's new, there's new guidelines. Just make sure the fire extinguisher is not older than 6 months. Also give your sellers a heads up to check the fire extinguisher before they walk out from Home Depot, because sometimes there's fire extinguishers are from 2018 or 19, even though they're brand new, they're not up to code. You have to get the one that's from 2021. And if you have the receipt to attach to it, that'll be great. Some of the townships require that, some of them don't. But as long as you have one that's not older than 6 months, you'll be good to go. Make sure you mount it to the wall. It's not 10 feet away from the kitchen. So those are like little things that it's really, you sit there at the inspection, they show up, and the fire extinguisher, the only thing that it's just too old, it's from 2019. So it just sucks because you sat there, waited for them. Just kind of give your sellers a heads up, because you'll be looking like a rock star when they walk in, check the fire extinguisher, and it's the right one. And you're like, wow, my real estate agent is pretty cool. So just give them kind of the heads up on that. And the smoke and carbon, just now they require to have them the 10-year non-removable battery. So just make sure when they do get them, you can't take the battery out. And if it's hardwired, make sure they hardwired the way it is. Make sure they don't be creative and put the different ones there. So there was there's requirements. If they were hardwired, they stay hardwired. Same thing.
What would you do? You would schedule the CO before the closing date. Do you like call the township or something and say you're selling the property and you need to schedule a CO? Is that how?
Yes. We do have it. I don't know. We used to have it in that loop, like all the COs, the copies of the application. But I would just call the township and ask them how much the fee is and what the requirements are, so they kind of walk you through. It's like, I know Pleasantville and Atlantic City is like check everything, so you can't even cover yourself to
And-
what they're gonna be checking for.
What do you typically schedule that before the closing? Like, do you try to get that done a week, 2 weeks, or,
I
before
would
the
do about 3 weeks before the closing,
about 3
maybe
weeks?
4.
Okay.
Yes.
So they would issue that just because you're under contract and everything for the new buyer. Gotcha.
Mhm.
Thank you.
As long as you get the CO before the closing, you're good to go. Most of the mortgage companies don't require COs. CO is really just for the township. So if your seller doesn't get a CO and they check that you sold the property without it, you might get some fines. And the fines will go to the seller. So just be mindful of that. And they do check. They definitely check, because we got fined one time. Yes, Melissa. Hold on. Unmute yourself. I can't hear you.
Okay, you can hear me
There you
now.
go. Mhm.
Okay. What do you do if, say the house is, not even that old. So a fire extinguisher, what do they do with the old fire extinguisher? If it's not up, like past 2019 or 2020?
I don't know how you recycle them. I'm not sure. Just look on the fire extinguisher, see how to dispose of them. I
Okay.
know we probably, I probably have a fire extinguisher from forever ago in my house, and I probably don't even know if it's working or not. But when you do a sale and you do a resale of the property, you just have to get a new one. It's just one of those things one of those expenses that you have to invest in during the sale.
All right. So you just advise your seller to.
Just, you can just, I guess, throw it away. I don't know how to correctly dispose of the fire extinguisher, but maybe recycle them somehow. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
So just throw it away. Or take it to your new house. I don't know.
Okay.
So it's just, I know, like the Maze Landing, that's what they check for. So they probably won't care if, they close their eyes on other things, but they check carbon and smoke.
Right.
And fire extinguisher. And if you don't mount it, they'll fail you. So just one of those things. Just get them, because this is like a new fire code. So,
Right.
and everybody has to meet them. And always the applications too, they come with a graph of where to place the smoke and carbon. So if you want to share that with the client before the inspector comes in,
Right.
so that would be a good thing to do, or just familiarize yourself with it. Because there's different, how many feet off the ceiling, and there's different smoke pockets, and so it gets very intense. Because I've been told by one of the fire officials, because I was fighting with them, because I was telling him, no, it's in the right spot, but he said no. Because then he pulled out the ruler and said, well, no, because it's in the pocket where the smoke doesn't get. So
Okay, so the whole tip is don't ask why, just do it.
just do it. Just do it. Just get them out. Because some of them you get great inspectors, some of them are pain in the ass. So you just kind of want to avoid all that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm gonna skip the municipal assessments. Those are more like for the title companies. So is the quality insurability of the title. It's more like for the title people class. Possession, occupancy, and tenancies. So make sure if there is tenants in the property that and they are going to get rid of them before you buy in the house. So make sure you marked off that tenants is not applicable, because you don't want to buy the house with the tenants in there if you're moving into it. If your buyer buying this as an investment property and buying this property with tenants, just make sure you have tenants named there, how much rent they're paying, what the security deposit is. So just kind of reach out to the agent and get that information. Number 13 is lead-based paint. Lead-based paint might not be really, really important to some people, but it is very important to our office compliance. And if you guys missed the lead-based paint and the property was built prior to 1978, you can, the office can impose like huge fines. It's like up to $4,000 or something like that. So make sure you get your lead-based paint. And all of our listings on our team, we actually put lead-based paint into our listings on Paragon. So when the buyer's agents do put an offer on our properties, they can go in there and grab that lead-based paint and have the buyer sign it. So they'll have a copy of fully signed. We have a copy of fully signed. So instead of us going back and forth, hey, can you return the lead-based paint back? So just make sure you check. Everybody knows how to check the property's information on when the property was built. So just real tax or real tools on Paragon. Just look it up on just Google the property on there. It tells you when it was built. So just check on that. And the paragraph 13, all this A, B, and C, it has to do with the lead-based paint. So you can just kind of skip that. Cesspools, they are no longer legal. So if the property is with cesspool, it does have to be replaced. Just to keep that in mind. Here is the number 16. The number 16 I was referring to is for the home inspection. Buy and sell agree because of the number of issues. Let me just read this real quick. So the seller have to let you in to do the home inspection. So it's kind of just telling them the buyer has the right to do the home inspection. Same thing to do to inspect for the termites. And our contracts are pre-built already for the 14-day after the attorney review. And those 40 days is counting the weekends too. So just when you when you schedule your home inspections and your termite inspections, just keep that in mind. So they're not counting the business days, it's calendar days. So it means they're counting the weekends too. So sometimes people get into like back and forth between the agents is because of that. Because if you don't read the contract correctly, they think that you have 14 days of the business days, but it's really not, it's calendar days. And same thing that some of the buyers, especially the nervous ones, when the home inspection comes up a little bit not what they expected, you have enough time to get all that stuff done and to cancel all if you have to cancel that you are within the 14 days. So if you get your inspection in within the last date of 14 days, you really have to give them the report that day to the seller. And after the seller receives it, they have 7 days to respond to you. Sometimes you get like, hey, where's my response? Where's my response? So really, they do have 7 days to respond back to you. And same thing, after they respond to you, you really have 7 days to respond back to them. So, and this really, the paragraph is about the C and D. Who loves home inspections? Did anybody have any horror stories about home inspections?
They're long.
Not yet, thank God.
That's awesome.
Aren't they like 60 pages?
It could be 80 pages, it could be 100 pages, depending on who you're using. So let me just, give me one. Sorry, guys. Okay, so especially for the buyer's agents, just kind of a little tip, just preset them in advance, not to ask for, I don't know, little things like paint and covers or something like that. So you really just want to your job really to protect your clients, but also you want to make the deal work. So just preset them in advance that you're going to be looking for safety issues.
Mine's frozen.
Oh, did I froze? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Yep, I
Okay.
hear you.
Awesome. So
I
you
hear
just
ya.
wanna, like, the big items, the big ticket items is the ones that you really want to pay attention to. Like the roof, the heater, the foundation, things like that. The appliances, I probably wouldn't advise the client to really pay attention too much, depending on how much it is important to them. But the big things are like the heating systems that are not working, or the AC unit is not working, those things that you really would want to ask on a home inspection. So a lot, like the home inspection is really, I call, when I work with my buyers, I tell them we have 3 hiccups during the whole process. The first hiccup is our attorney review. It's 3 days of attorney review, because anybody can cancel. So when I don't really tell them even to celebrate. It's like, listen, we're celebrating after attorney review. Because really during those 3 days, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, knock on wood, but it might. Everybody has the right to cancel. They can go to their attorney, cancel the contract. For whatever reason, they don't even have to explain it to you. The second one is home inspection. You walk in, house is beautiful. Oh my God, we love it. Da, da, da. But then you do the home inspection. The heater is like on its last leg. The roof is like patched up or whatever, because you can't really see the roof during the showing. Something else, there's a crack in the foundation. So, and your clients will really act the way you act. So if you start to be like, oh my God, oh, that's it. It's a horrible house. If you really keep it together, it's like, listen, it could be, let's find out how much it's gonna, how much to fix that or how much to replace that, because it's really not the end of the world, because things could get fixed. So just kind of set them up, because you really want to make the deal work and not to kind of, break it. And we all work with different personalities. There's a lot of different people you'll be working with, and some people, might not be comfortable with certain things, and some people will be okay with that. So just kind of play like good cop, bad cop. If yes, Melissa.
Hi, where do we get a list of the home inspectors that Keller prefers to use?
Actually, our office is working on like preferred vendors. So you'll have like a list of inspectors, or like you can just ask people around. We use I use my guy. He's I try not to give out his name because then he gets too busy. And because I want to get my home inspections in as soon as possible.
Right.
So, but like if you have very like nervous buyers, I probably would stay away from Chris Stankus, because Chris is very thorough. He's really good, but they get very busy. So sometimes you might not get them in within the 14 days. So I would recommend sometimes to, even while you're in attorney review, get that home inspection scheduled as soon as possible, depending on the home inspector schedule. So you can meet that 14-day, the deadline on the contract.
Okay.
Because you want to get it in there. You can always cancel it. So God forbid, like something happens during attorney review, but at least you're in there already. So the peace of mind, Edward Guys is really good. I think Deborah Sorg, her husband is the home inspector. So if you want to get like the list of the home inspectors, I can share it with you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. And try to get I like Edward Ghazi. He does the home inspection and he can do the termite inspection at the same time. So he's cool like that. If not, if you have a relationship with any termite people, you just call them and try to line them up at the same day so they can come out in and out. So don't get the seller all, like sometimes everybody's schedule is different. So try to line them up at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So on home inspection thing, so you get the, you're gonna get 100 pages report, all cool stuff on there. So sit with your client, talk about it. You can recommend to them like what should be done, what you should not be done. But you're also not the inspector. You can't really, advise them too much on it. Just kind of like let it go with what they're more comfortable with. But concentrate on safety items and something that would cost your buyer a lot of money later.
Olga, I have a question. I have a question when you have a second. What type of, so when the home inspection comes back and the buyer looks at it, what on the home inspection can allow them to back away from the contract? Like if there's like I always get confused about that. Like if the roof's collapsing, can they back away, or just as an example?
You could back away for any reason really, but if the seller goes and so this is where a paragraph E comes in place, responsibility to cure.
Okay.
So really, if you have a seller that tells you, oh my God, I'll fix all the items on the home inspection report, then your buyer can't back up.
Yeah, I gotcha. Like
So
if they can't, is it like if they can't negotiate on certain items?
if, for example, if you're going back and forth on the home inspection items, oh, I'll fix this, but not this, and and your buyer says, you know what? No, unless you're fixing all the items, I'm out.
Okay.
And then you can comfortably get out of there, do a mature release, and you're out. But if your seller, if you write the list of items, like 10 items, and they'll fix all 10 of them, you can't go back and tell them, you know what? Now I want this. So you can't go back and add more stuff to it because you already gave him the response. So be like very, very careful when you're responding that you include all the items.
Okay. And then if they did want to back out, like if my buyers give a list and the seller says, I'll do 1 of 9, but nothing else, and then the buyer doesn't like that, does he still need an attorney to back out of the contract?
No.
He can just
No,
go, okay.
No, you can just tell him as like, well, thank you for a response. My buyer decided to move to a different property, whatever. Just like, I'll send you mature release, whatever.
Okay.
So really,
Perfect.
you don't have to. Yes, it's just the responsibility to cure. It's been cases where the seller says, "Hey, I'm fixing everything on the list."
Mhm.
And the buyer's like, whoa, wait a second, I don't want this property anymore. I want to be out. So that creates a problem right there. That's when the attorneys get involved.
Gotcha.
And then potentially you can be sued for a lot of different things. So just be careful there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The flood hazard area, it's not really applies a lot to us. Maybe Atlantic City properties, but Megan Law is just there because it's a pre-stamped, they call it pre-stamped contract, so everything's in this contract. So we just wouldn't pay too much attention to that. Bulk sales is it's more like a title thing. Bulk sales really apply to the rental properties. So if it's just, it would be a different class to go over all that legal stuff. Insurance, you have to get insurance. Just your buyers have to get insurance. Maintenance of the property, the seller has to maintain the property. Regular wear and tear is okay, but they can't just destroy the property by the time you go to the settlement. So it's just kind of like protecting your buyer there a little bit. Initial and final walkthroughs. If you have a seller, please let your seller know that they do have to have the property broom swept and utilities has to stay on. So for the walkthrough, when the buyer comes to do the walkthrough in the house, the utilities have to be on because it's a little bit of a liability if they go to the buyers come in, do the final walkthrough and the utility is not on, they can't check the heater, they can't check the AC, they can't check appliances. So then how do you know stuff is working before you're buying it? So just kind of to prevent that problem of panicking and delaying the closing, just kind of let your seller know, hey, it's not going to kill you to keep utilities on for an extra day and shut it off the next day. And if you can just tell your buyer, switch over the utilities, then we don't even have to worry about disconnecting anything. It's just get from one name to another. Nobody comes in, shuts anything off, and you have a happy closing. Adjustments at closing. I'm just gonna a little bit, just go really quickly because the title companies are really take care of all that stuff. Who pays for what? The seller will always be paying for the deed. The buyer will pay for the recording of the deed. The seller will always pay for the transfer taxes. The adjustments will be done, so the seller will be responsible for the taxes to the day off, and then the buyer takes over. So in the title companies, they run all that stuff, they separate it all, so it's all really there. And what do I say always? It's probably not always, unless you have it specified in the contract who's paying what. But sometimes when you negotiate a contract, those terms could always change. If your people are getting a great deal on the property and the seller's asking you to pay the seller's closing costs, then those fees might end up on the buyer's side. But it all depends on, in this specific contract, it's the regular contract. This is what everybody's paying. So the seller always pays for the deed. The seller is going to pay for the transfer taxes and the taxes up to the date. And the buyer pays for the recording. So that's like a standard procedure standard in the contract. Failure of buyer or seller to close. I don't even want to talk about that. It's just really, if the buyer or the seller doesn't show up, you can really, if they don't show up to the closing, they can be really liable. They can end up in court fighting, paying attorney fees, damage fees, and all the other stuff. So try to avoid that. CIS is just telling you the relationship. This is our realtor stuff on here. Just kind of showing who we're representing. Brokers commissions. It's kind of self-explanatory. If you guys have questions on that, I can answer them if you'd like. Okay, equitable lien. A lot of attorneys don't like this. Number 31, they take it all, they always take it out of the contract. What does it say here? That did you guys know that we can sue, we can put a lien on the property as realtors for our commission?
Huh.
Yes,
Nice.
it's number 31. It's
Wait,
just saying
Oh, say that again. I'm sorry.
we could actually put a lien on the property for if we work really hard, if something went wrong, we could really take the seller for our commission. We can put a lien on the property. So it's like New Jersey law, brokers who bring the parties together in real estate transaction are entitled to an equitable lien in the amount of their commission. The lien attaches to the property being sold from where the contract of sale is signed until the closing date, and then to funds due to settle the closing, and no contingent upon the notice provided in this section. So not a lot of realtors know about this really section. I learned about this section because all the attorneys take them out of the contract. So yes, we could put it on there. I mean, it's not, we're gonna do it and that's what we're gonna do for a living, but it's just kind of protecting you as well in this contract that you could really go and put a lien on the property if you don't get paid on a commission. Also, if you are a seller and real estate agent, you have to disclose that. This is like part of our code of ethics. We do have to disclose that to the potential buyer, that they know that we are real estate agents and we're selling this property ourselves. So just if you go into investing into real estate and you become a seller, just make sure you disclose that. Brokers to receive closing docs, just saying that you can get a copy of the disclosures, like all the closing docs, that you have the right to get that. Sometimes it's because of the privacy laws, they can stop you from getting some of the docs, but this is just kind of protecting you so you can get that.
Quick question. I know like a lot of the attorneys, they don't want to really deal with the real estate agent. So when I need those documents, I can get those documents, request them from the lawyer to send me everything.
It depends on what documents you need. Some of the documents you might not even need. Like what documents do you refer
Like
to?
even the final contracts, like everything, the ones that I need, to upload. into,
The contract you will always have. So because you probably you'll prepare one, everybody will sign it, and then it will go to the attorney review period. And what attorneys do, they prepare their attorney review letters. And what they do is in that a letter, they will add stuff to it. They take stuff out. They make different little wording. They
go.
kind of like, they just take our contract and just like rip it apart.
right,
And yes, you should really have a copy of that.
okay,
Yes, just request if the attorney, and I've had different experiences with attorneys. Some of them are super nice. Some of them are not super nice, and they will probably like talk to you like you're nothing.
oh, yeah. I've had
Yeah.
that happen.
Just request it from your client. Just ask your client, hey, can you send me that letter? I do really need that. I need just to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Just, you can always get a copy from your client.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Yes. Attorney review time. So just keep in mind it's business days, not counting holidays. We don't count weekends as well. So, and I have noticed like if the client does hire an attorney and it's passed through the attorney review, it's still okay. Because attorney can step in really at any time, and well, not at any time, like really in the beginning of the contract, 3-4 days, get an attorney. If somebody's hiring somebody, just do that right in the beginning. Because I've seen attorneys step in and like on day 4 or 5, and some attorneys, also whoever deals with attorneys, don't get too scared when you have an attorney sending you a letter. Because it could be 2 letters from an attorney. One's canceling, which will say this contract is canceled. The second one will say the contract is approved, but disapproved for some of the items. Or they kind of nicely will write it in there because of the way the market is. So if the buyer gets the contract review, they really don't want to cancel that because they know that people want the property. They just want to make the changes in the contract. So also, if you do have a seller and you have a buyer coming back with an attorney, just kind of tell them, listen, we are going to get a disapproval letter, but it's not it's in a canceling the contract. We're just modifying some things on it. So just warn your seller in advance so they don't just kind of like just to touch on the whole process of the home selling and buying is very stressful for everybody. Not only us as a real estate agents, but also the clients. So you're going to be like a filter between the 2 parties, because one party could be like losing their mind, but you don't want to take that and give it to your client, because your client should just be, if there's a problem in the transaction like this, the home inspection or something, just be a filter for them. Like just figure it out on your end and then go to them and break them the news if it's really bad. So just kind of be a filter with that. Any questions about attorneys? Because attorneys really, they don't really like to give anything to the realtors at all. So just do your kind of like on the background, just do your thing, make sure your mortgage commitment's on time, make sure this gets done, make sure the CO gets done. They'll negotiation and all the other stuff if you have an attorney throughout the whole transaction. Just make sure you get the CO, make sure you get all the mortgage commitment, make sure you will schedule the closing. They'll take care of all the numbers and all that stuff. They pretty much do all the work, but you just got to do little things that you have everything done before the closing. So sometimes I love attorneys, sometimes I don't. Electronic signatures, it's not because we use electronic signatures a lot, so they put it in there. That's oh, the addendums, number 42. So whatever you guys click on here, make sure you have an addendum following it, because the mortgage underwriter is gonna like come through the contract with the magnifying glass, and if you ever checked anything on here and you're missing it and they didn't get to them, they're going to ask for it. So make sure you have all the addendums in there. Also, important stuff, because if you guys can be, if you're working with the buyers and it's a first time home buyers, they're getting an FHA mortgage, make sure you add FHA VA a mandatory clause to the contract. Let me see if I have this one here. No, this was conventional.
Can you say that again, what you just said about FHA?
Yes, if you have an FHA buyer, which is first time home buyers, make sure you have a VA FHA a mandatory clause attached to the contract. And it is in DocuSign, so you'll be able to find it. So besides lead-based paint, also make sure you have that VA FHA. 'Cause sometimes it could slow down the process because you're gonna need it for all the VA and FHA deals, no matter what. So just have it attached to the contract. It will save you some time. So pre-qual is, make sure that you also attach the pre-qual, lead-based paint, FHA VA if you have an FHA buyer. If you have hard money buyer, then it's attached their pre-qual from the hard money lender. Let me go back to the addendums. And of course, if the property has well and septic, if you have well and septic, make sure you have well and septic addendums attached to it. Just to protect the clients who's getting what, like, I usually, for my buyers, I make the seller pay for all the inspections for if it's a well and septic. It's customary to have the seller get the well, but the buyer gets the septic certification. It's up to you too, but I mean, in our area, the buyer gets septic, seller does well. And the reason for that is because sometimes seller could get their septic people to like juju with the septic certification. But if you're okay with that, just get the seller pay for all of that. So depending on what you want to negotiate during your when you submit your contract.
Okay, I have a
If it's
question.
yeah.
It was in reference to cesspool, and I've heard different things back and forth over the last couple of months. Are we able to sell properties with cesspool, like cash?
If it's cash.
Cash you can. Okay. So it has to be cash. Thank you.
It's by new codes, all the cesspools gotta go. You gotta dispose them appropriately and install septic.
Okay, because I have a couple of properties that do have cesspools on them, and they want to sell them.
Yeah, they should really replace them. They're like super old.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. What do we have here? Underground fuel tanks, swimming pool, solar panels, short sales, seller concessions. Everybody familiar with seller concessions? Let me just kind of like let me just cover it. So just make sure so everybody knows. Seller concessions are great for the buyers who don't have a lot of money to bring to the table. So what they do, they really just they mortgaging off that amount. So instead of like, sometimes you'll have a buyer that only have, I don't know, 5,000 in the bank, but they're really gonna need 10,000 to close. So they can always ask the seller for seller concession. If you see a property listed for 155 and you're submitting an offer 155 with $5,000 seller concession to the seller, it's really an offer, not 155. It's really an offer for 150. Even though in the contract is going to say 155, but they really not getting 155 back, they're getting 150 because you're asking for 5,000. So if you really want to come up, if your buyer needs some money, just you can pack it up into the over asking and ask that money back. So then the seller really gets 155 and the seller gets 155, but the buyer can just bring less money to the closing. They are going to buy the property. So if property 155, you put an offer for 160 with 5 back, the buyer is getting the mortgage for 160 because they just mortgaged off that 5,000 that they didn't have to bring to the closing table.
Oh, so they're just paying that back with the mortgage part on the mortgage. It's not, so like if you're paying points, that's totally different. If you're asking the seller to pay points, that's totally different. Okay. That's where I get a little confused.
Yeah, points are a little bit different. Points is like they can pay extra points. They'll bring extra money to the closing, but then they'll get a better interest rate. They can do that. But that's like on the mortgage side.
So
But it-
okay, so I'm sorry, the seller concession has really nothing to do with the seller. It's between the mortgage company and the buyers. Is that right?
No, it does have a lot to do with the seller because seller has to agree to it, number one. Number two, if you do add the seller concession to it, because it means they're gonna make less money on the house.
Oh, so so the seller, it is lowering the price.
But you can always go, for example, the property is 155, right? They'll be happy with 155.
Mhm.
But you bring in the offer for 160 with 5,000 back. So they really are gonna make 155, and that's what they asked for.
Oh, okay.
So you just have to, like, you can tack it on that 5,000 on top of the sales price.
So the seller's not losing any money, right?
Exactly. They would
Okay.
not lose money.
Sorry.
The only way they
Feel
lose
around.
money if you bring in 155 and 5 back, so they getting 150.
Okay, thank you.
Because some agents get confused. They get so excited. I was like, oh my God, I'm bringing you a full price offer. We look at this. It is full price, but then they ask for $10,000 concession. I was like, well, you would have said, well, it's not really full price. So instead
Right.
of me getting 155, I'm really getting 145. So how is this a full price? So just think like a seller.
Okay, thank you.
All right, cool. So I'm kind of like, let me see. I wanted to share with you what my processor use for. I don't want to overwhelm you guys because the real estate process could be super, super, super complicated. Like sometimes you could just overload if you're a new agent. So on this, I have this little kind of like a cheat sheet we use. It will give you like the contract date, the end of attorney review. You know, if it's buying, or it still has loop in it because we used to use that loop. I don't know how many agents use that loop right now, but I'm still back on the loops. But we use DocuSign now. Our team uses DocuSign, but we're still on our buying and listing loop. Because really, this whole real estate process is kind of like, it's like together kind of, but certain things buyers do, certain things sellers do. So I have it broken down by the new listing. So all the compliance that's needed for the office. If you guys want, I can share this with you. So make sure you have all these things on the list. Just ignore the processing fee. This is something that our team does. When it comes to on the contract, it has little things for the buyer, because really this is the compliance. The first 1, 2, 3, 4 dots is for the buyer. And then when we get to this part, this is where the first beginning of when you get the contract, so you kind of know who the buyer's agent is, what the mortgage company contact is. Do we have pre-qual letter? Do we have deposit check? Do we have escrow deposit letter? And why do I ask for the escrow deposit letter? Can anybody answer that question?
So that it's record that you've turned it in. I don't know.
Perfect. Yes, that's correct. Because a lot of agents will take a screenshot and then be like, here you go, Olga, there's my deposit check. Yeah, but where is this deposit check? Is it really the title company? So if I have the seller, I really want to make sure I protect my seller, but making sure the deposit check is really deposited. So if we already doing home inspection and the title company didn't send me the escrow letter, so does it really mean that the check is at the title company? No, if I don't have an escrow letter, I don't really know. So my team asks for that no matter what. Always make sure there is some kind of a pre-qual letter or proof of funds. If you're running around, some agents could be super busy, whatever. They send you the contract, but there is no proof of funds, there is no pre-qual. So how do I know if I have the seller that your buyer really pre-qualified? So I really don't. So you got to make sure you attach the pre-qualification letter. And me and Shawn, we will call the mortgage guy. Like if I have two offers to different lenders, some lenders we already know because of just from experience, some lenders we don't. So how do I know this lender is really going to be on top of their staff? So we'll make a phone call. And how do you get that information is from the pre-qual. So make sure you always have either you send the contract with the pre-qual or you receive with the pre-qual. It's important. So you can always introduce yourself. Hey, I'm so and so. What's up with you? How's this buyer from 1 to 10? How confident are you gonna close this? And they're gonna tell you. It's like we might have to work a couple things. Not, I'm super confident. It's just one W-2. Great job. Then you can go confidently to your seller, telling them, hey, this one is a good to go. The mortgage is great, you know. So you can provide that extra service to your seller, telling them that the buyer is good to go. So this is why it's important to have the pre-qual done. And command. Who loves command? So.
It's a
So-
slow romance.
Really nothing to worry about. It's very easy. It's nothing really crazy. All you do, just make sure when you do get a client, you put them in command. Set them in there, set them up on some stuff, let them get some neighborhood shots from you. When they're ready to really do the contract, you started the opportunity. Start the opportunity will take you to the Outlook or DocuSign, whatever you prefer to use. And the information, their name, their phone number, and their email will transfer over from command to DocuSign. You already have that in there. And then you can work around all the documents in DocuSign. When you have all the compliance, just load it to command. When you get the contract, load it to command, submit it to the front desk, and you're really nothing else to worry about. So then you compliant with the office, you compliant with if real estate commission comes to the office and check all the stuff, you'll have all your stuff ready in command to go. And so past that, when you get the processing checklist right here is the final stage. This is where all the magic happens. This is when you get the buyer you order the title from the title company. So whoever you prefer, whoever you have a relationship with. We use Atlantic Shore Title because they're right here. I can always just stop by and talk to the girls, whatever I need, it's here. So we'll send the contract, the pre-qual, and let them know, hey, this is you always want to connect your title company with the mortgage people because they're always going to talk to each other. They're going to have to do the documents together. So attach them all on the same email. Send them the contract, send them the pre-qual. Here you go. Here's the title order. You'll get the title processor, whoever it is. You can share it with the listing agent. Title commitment takes right now about 2-3 weeks to get. The home inspection, you know from the contract, it's 2 weeks after the attorney review. Same thing with the termite inspection. The survey, you can ask the seller if they have a survey, like a newer one. If not, just ask your buyer if they want a survey. You don't have to get it. It's not a requirement. But just ask them. Some people do want to know the property lines. So important ones to whoever's paying attention on FHA mortgages. On FHA mortgages, you do need to have termite inspection done. Conventional mortgages, they don't care about it. The FHA, you must have. FHA and VA, you do need termite. So when you do schedule those inspections, make sure you have the termite done. Also, on the VA mortgage, whoever has a VA mortgage, just kind of like put it in your file right here in your mind. VA termite is getting paid by the seller. So you can add it to the settlement sheet at the end for the seller to pay the termite. CO, I have buyer and a seller on my checklist because sometimes it's a buyer, sometimes it's a seller. It's usually 80% is the seller unless it's otherwise stated in the contract. Septic and well, same thing. You got to have the addendums to say who's doing what. Appraisal. appraisal right now, the way the mortgage industry is, it's very overwhelmed with a lot of different things. So as soon as you're out of your home inspection period, ask the mortgage to get the appraisal going. Because the appraisals now take about 12 days to get back after the appraisal inspection. So get the appraisal in there as soon as possible. So if you do really have 45-day closing and you have to wait for the home inspection, then the appraisal inspection, you might not close in time, because if the appraisal doesn't give you the appraisal report back, it's gonna delay your closing. You're not gonna meet your mortgage commitment dates, and you're not gonna meet your closing date. And you wanna close your deals on time. So don't do any extensions. Just kind of be on top of your thing. Home inspection done, negotiations done with the home inspection, get the appraisal in there as soon as possible. Right after home inspection, because you don't want your client really to pay for the appraisal, which is like, I don't know, $550 now, or like somewhere on there. So they're paying $450 for the home inspection, then they have to pay $500 something for the appraisal. It's a lot of money. So get your home inspection out of the way. If it's good to go, then get the appraisal in. If the home inspection and you're getting it's mutual released, then you just saved your client $500 on the appraisal. Next one on my list is deed and payoff. And I do have a seller in the brackets there, because seller always orders the deed. And payoff, if the seller has the mortgage on the property, we'll just ask them to get a payoff for the title company. And those two items kind of like make like a little mental note. Those two items do require title commitment. Not more for like the not mortgage payoff, because they can always call the mortgage company and get a payoff if they know they have a mortgage. If they don't know that they have a mortgage, you can just wait for the title commitment. It'll show up with all the stuff on there. But for the deed, they do have to have title work. And the reason why is because it has legal description of the property that goes onto the deed. That's why they need title commitment. Next one, I have termite treatment. Yes or no, so we don't forget if the property does need to be treated or not. And maybe we'll make the arrangements to have it treated if it has to be. And reimbursement, if you ended up paying for the CO for, I don't know, something else, you can always submit it to the title company to get reimbursed. And this is when you submit your commission statement. I do commission statements only for our side, because I don't really know what the seller's agreement with the agent is. I can only see my side. So, so I'll do my buyer's commission and send it to the title company. So I know how much I get paid. HUD and Alta. HUD is for cash deals, Alta is for mortgage deals. And I'll ask for that probably like a week before the closing. Also for mortgage people, for mortgage clients, make sure your mortgage lender remembers to send out the closing disclosure. And closing disclosure must go out 3 days before the closing. So if your mortgage lender is like la-di-da-di and they forget to send out the CD, you're not closing in 2 days. They're gonna delay it by a day or two or for whatever. So just kind of remember to remind the lender to send out the CD. If you have an awesome lender and they on top of they have their own checklist and they know when to send out what, then you don't have to worry about it. But I have it with Alta and HUD. My team knows to start requesting that a week in advance, because not all the mortgage people on top of their game. I'm sorry, guys, there's chat going. Oh, can we get the checklist? Absolutely. You guys can definitely get my checklist. This is kind of like my Bible. I'm going to give this to Laura because I don't know how to send this in here, and she can send it over to you guys. My checklist is, this is kind of worked with me for like, I don't know, 1,000 deals or more. Like I have Danielle in my class right now and she's shadowing me, and this is what we do. We just every day I look at my checklist and what did I forget to do today? Did I forget to this, and this? What are we checking on today? Mortgage commitments? Okay. Just every single file kind of just there. And you follow this, you'll never forget anything. No problem, guys. Reimbursement card, utilities. People forget about utilities. I have it on, this is why I have it on my checklist. You gotta I remind both agents because the listing agents forget, the buyer's agents forget about facilities. Who remembers about them? So I have it on there. Let them know like 3-4 days before. So when you know the closing date, you can call and switch utilities over. So then if you call in advance, you transfer over, then you don't have to worry about disconnect and connect. Next one is my closing in the calendar. Just put it in there. I put the agent, the client, put a location there, the time where they have to go. Just kind of congrats, closing on XYZ at this time. This is the place you gotta be. Put the address there. You wanna do the walkthrough probably like an hour and a half before, depending on the location of the property and the title company. Just make sure you kind of like check on, make sure everything's working, nothing, like the toilet flush and water's working, the wash and dryer works, and just kind of like check out everything in the property. So when you really go to the sentiment, you're like, all right, this is what we saw, this is what we buy. So, and you go to the closing and it's happy ending. And this right here, and like on my second page, it's my kind of like the, how do I call it? Kind of like a cleanup tasks. So if you have a listing, we close it in Paragon. I don't know if anybody knows, but you can claim your sales on Zillow. But then when somebody looks you up on Zillow, you show up with all your past sales on there. So we claim that. You do submit your commission tab, send out thank you cards or thank you email. If you have a seller, they're moving somewhere else, so update the address so you can stay in touch with them and send them things. And if you have a buyer, set up an anniversary date so you can kind of like touch base with them. Like, hey, it's been a year, you sold your property, 2 years, 3 years, congrats. And like, just kind of keep in touch with them. Because really, whoever you sell to is become your past clients. They're going to give you referrals. They, keep in touch with them. And Command is great for that. And it will remind you, have like little tasks on there, remind you what to do on there. So it's really, cool stuff to have.
I love that. That thing is like so comforting.
I'm glad to hear that. So I like to do my classes. Sometimes just share my knowledge in real estate. Because I don't know if you guys know me that much, but let me just, what do I just stop share? So I started working with Shawn about 6 years ago, and it was just me and Shawn. We had like 35 transactions a year when I started with him, and he just told me like, hey, like I had one piece of paper, and it was probably 5-minute training, and he's like, so when he hired me, he's like, you know what? Just do compliance. I just want to make sure I'm compliant. I do compliance and organize me. That's it. And I was like, listen, I don't know anything about anything. I was like, teach me. So we did like 5-minute session. He's like, well, this is what buyers do. This is what sellers do. I'm like, okay. And kind of through years after years, like our second year, we multiplied our business by, so it was 35. Then we went to 68 transactions. Then we went to 95 and 120 and 160. We grew the team. So now I have an assistant. I have a listing manager. I also do some processing on the side, also sell some real estate. And this checklist that I shared, I'm going to share with you, all of you guys, kind of was my, you can get so busy doing other stuff. You could be doing this and that, but then you look at this checklist, it's like, hey, I didn't get the escrow letter. Where is it? It's kind of like puts you back to where you need to be, or like, oh, the home inspection. Did I get my home inspection back? Because they just did it on March 6th. Today is March 8th. Where is my home inspection items? Because if they're gonna cancel the contract, then get it out of there right now, because I'm gonna put the property back on the market and then sell it to somebody else. So you kind of have that little chit on there, so you know where you're at too. So, and the reason why I go over the contract, because all the deadlines in there, so you can set it up when the home inspection is over. When is, I don't know, attorney review is over, when is mortgage commitment is due. So you kind of know, so instead of scrolling through the contract all the time, you're gonna have a like little cheat sheet. And you just write it all in there, and that's why I have agents' phone numbers. You probably will have it in your phone, but for my processors, I was like, write it down, because then you open it up, and you don't spend 10 minutes scrolling through the contract, you already have it right there. So you can just call the lender, you call the agent, you call whoever you need, it's right there in front of your face. So that was kind of, it's been working for us, and just kind of our little Bible, the little checklist, and it works for us, and I don't mind sharing it with everybody. So if it works for you, great, it helps you. It's just, that's why I love real estate, because we get to help people. And if I can help you guys to help people, why not? So if you guys have any questions, anything like
Thank
that.
you so much. I really appreciate it. I've been in over a year and every little bit helps, so I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And you guys always can, you know where my office is, so just pop in with questions or whatever. You're more than welcome.
Thank you. It was very helpful. I appreciate it.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you,
right, guys.
Olga. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna go sell some houses. You guys go rock it out there.
And Laura will
Thank you,
have
Olga.
that we can get that from Laura.
Yes, I'll give it to Laura if, oh God. If not, I'm always here. I'm in Shawn's office right next to Tom Allen. You can always stop by and just grab a copy.
Okay,
And I'll give a copy to Laura, and then she can email it to you all guys.
thank you.
You're welcome. All right, have a good day, guys.
Bye, you
Bye,
too.
you too.